Yeah.
Mansplaining.
Let me explain.
I'm Sol.
And I'm SANNA.
And it's the board of the Bling Bling
Broads.
Plus, Buddy.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Yeah.
So
The board is now in session.
great. So today's topic, we are going to speak about mansplaining. Have you guys heard the term mansplaining before?
Yes, and manspreading.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, lovely. That's so
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Well, today our topic is mansplaining.
Yes,
sorry,
it is
mansplaining.
mansplaining. Okay, so let me. Oh my goodness, I had it pulled up, but I have so many links. Where'd it go? Nope, I closed it. Okay. According to the Urban Dictionary, let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah. We're going to look at the definition
Yes.
of what mansplaining
well,
is.
because men are not reliable.
I mean,
so-
I can always just explain what mansplaining is for
Oh,
you.
is that really?
I might do a better job than what they have in the
You're right.
dictionary.
Because
Yeah.
who knows if this was a woman who wrote this?
Yeah, we can't trust me.
Wow.
Okay, let me read the definition to you, and then we will introduce our man guest. So, mansplaining, according to Urban Dictionary, is when a man explains something to a woman in a patronizing tone, as if the woman is too emotional and illogical to understand. Oh, a woman definitely wrote this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's the Urban Dictionary definition. But before we kind of dive into mansplaining, we shall introduce our guest. He's our buddy. His name is Brian. Anything you want to say to our audience?
Well, I mean, I'm obviously the resident expert at mansplaining. That's why you brought me in. Or at least that's how I'm
yes.
feeling that
Yeah.
this is going.
Right. No, I thought
Expert on the panel.
we thought he'd be a great representation for men everywhere.
Oh, that's
Cool.
a lot of pressure.
So you guys have heard the term mansplaining, and
Yes.
we've read the Urban Dictionary term of
Mhm.
mansplaining. So let's kind of discuss what your personal experiences with mansplaining is. Who wants to start?
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you go first, actually.
okay. Well, I don't feel like I get mansplained to a lot because I think there's two different things. If there's the people that actually...
You're right. You're wrong. I womansplain to you.
There's two different things of it, in my opinion. It is the people that actually mansplain
Yes.
things, and then there is the people that love teaching people,
Right.
or they just try to teach you this thing that they know, and they kind of have to assume that you don't know it.
And-
That's generally like my situation
Mhm.
in a lot of these. Is that like I get very passionate and
Yeah.
exuberant in explaining things to people, and I get a little carried away because sometimes I feel like I don't explain it well enough.
Yeah.
Like because then I didn't understand how I explained it,
Uh-huh.
and so I have to dig
Explain
down
it
deeper to
again.
explain
Yeah.
it more. And apparently, recently I learned that I mansplained a lot.
Yeah.
and I
Well,
didn't know that.
And you can sometimes encounter people that do not know those basic things, so you just feel like
right.
the best way for you to explain this complex concept is to start from the bottom, and then you just explain the whole thing.
Right.
Because then at least you are sure that they are with you the whole way. But sometimes that turns into mansplaining.
sometimes, but do you ever feel like, because I feel like I've been accused of being, according to Urban Dictionary, it said patronizing.
Yeah,
like,
like
I've
patronizing
been-
is the word you would
yeah.
use in general for a
Yeah.
lot of it. I
Right,
think
right.
mansplaining kind of gets a little carried away. You know,
Right,
like people
'cause
use
it-
that in terms of when it should be
Because of the
patronizing.
patriarchy.
I don't know if patronizing directly ties into patriarchy.
No, I
does
mean
it?
mansplaining
Oh,
is
yeah.
related to
Yeah.
the patriarchy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've been mansplained to before as a blonde
Really?
girly. And I think it comes from a nice place, but it's this person who did it. It was from a couple jobs ago, and he was a client of ours, and I think it's because of the role that I was in, which was more technical, or not that technical, but it's a tech position, right? And then he just felt, or probably thought, that I didn't know anything because I was very young. And so he set up a meeting to explain to me how this program that we use worked.
He explained to you the program that you
set
use
up a
every
meeting,
day.
and then I go, hey, what's up? What do we want to talk about? He's like, I just wanted to go through this program with you, which we had actively been using. And he's like, yeah, and this is how you share it. And like very basic features of this program.
No, SANNA, you're blonde.
Things that you would use like
yeah,
every
like
single
day.
day.
And I just like,
Right.
okay, cool. Was there anything
This
else?
is the volume
like,
up and down button.
Basically,
Right.
basically. So I was like, okay, well, is there anything related to like our work with you that you wanted to discuss? No, nothing. Just he wanted to go through the program.
That's the only reason for the meeting.
The only
he wanted
reason
to
for
teach
the
you.
meeting.
And
And
really
so
funny.
it's like in that situation, I don't feel like he was explaining because he was passionate about
No.
it, right? For
Yeah,
that, and that reason he
being
was
belittling. He's being
Yeah.
patronizing.
Yeah.
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like, and he had other situations where he would do similar things.
Yeah, he
And-
assumed you didn't know.
Yes.
Do you
the
feel like
simple
that's
things.
something that like was directed towards you because you were a woman, or because might have been because you were new? Because I think that's what we run into a lot of society, where like it's mansplaining, but could it be the aspect of he's just being maybe a little patronizing, but not necessarily because you're a woman? Or?
It's a good question though, because like what I want to say is I work alongside another guy, but the thing is the other guy that I work with, who is a guy with like 20 plus 30 plus years of
Right.
experience, right?
Yeah.
So like I can't compare myself to that man,
Right.
because our experience levels are very
Yeah,
different.
Very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But-
I mean,
The way he talks to me just on a general level versus other men is
Right.
very different.
yeah,
When it
you
comes
can,
to-
you can tell
Does he?
that.
Do you guys talk anything non-related to work? And in that regards, when he's explaining something, does he do the same thing to you?
I don't
Or
have
is
a
it-
lot of non-work related conversations.
Right.
And we can take that back to our like
This is why you don't
cultural
have friends,
differences.
Sana. It's because you're always at work.
No, but we can go back to our last episode where we talked about like cultural differences and
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Mhm.
Like in Norway, when you work, like I don't have a very
Yeah.
deep desire to be your friend
Right.
outside of it, and I don't want to pretend to be.
Right.
So I'm not gonna ask you a lot of unnecessary questions. I'll ask you how your weekend was, but I don't.
Right.
I don't care how you're,
We're
like-
working.
I don't care how
But-
your golf
That's very
experience is
interesting.
going. I really don't.
But you know what? That's a sneak peek for next week's episode
Oh, there
because
you
we
go.
are talking about cultural differences within the workplace.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah.
save
Again.
it. So save
Yes.
So save it, Sana. Save it. Save it.
Well, I'm
Someone-
excited to give that one a watch.
Yeah.
So I haven't experienced a lot of patronizing things in the workplace because I think I just give off a very strong energy.
Mhm.
I actually get accused of being a bitch quite often, but that's for another time. Anyways, however, I've been on
Bitch.
many dates. From last week's episode, we covered I'm a slut. So I've been
Wow.
on
Just coming out right and saying it, huh?
Yeah. So I've been on many dates, and there was this one time I went on this date, and this guy told me I was holding a knife wrong. By the way, if you've heard, I like cooking. I cook a
Yes.
lot.
Yes.
Okay. So he taught me how I'm not holding the knife correctly and
Ooh.
how I need to cut I'm not cutting an onion correctly. I'm not doing this correctly. So he just basically just told me that I can't do it and he needs to do it.
He needs to hold your hand and
Yeah,
guide
yeah,
you through
yeah,
the
yeah.
process of chopping something. with a
Right,
knife.
right. There's
Yeah.
many ways to chop an onion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, does the person ever have any like experience in the kitchen?
No, this guy was a contractor.
Oh, so he just learned it online and kind of
Yeah.
took that and applied it as
Uh-huh.
okay.
But
as
regardless,
fact.
You're eating like a normal human being. Like
Yeah.
if your angle is like what does it matter?
Who cares? It's all gonna come out as poop anyways.
Yeah, that's one way to put it too. Yeah.
But a feast for your eyes, though. Come
Yeah.
So I think that's a very clear example of mansplaining that they're referring to.
on.
But I think a lot of mansplaining is used way too often.
Yeah,
these
I
when
think
days.
so too.
Yeah.
Not.
When any man will explain anything to you and you don't want to hear it, it's
Yeah.
mansplaining.
Right.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that's a great point.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is that just because someone's explaining something to you, like they mention it in the dictionary definition, like patronizing is a very big key to it.
Right.
It's if they're being condescending to you, their tone, the way that they're dumbing down words
Yeah.
intentionally and kind of like, you know, so that you can get it, right?
Yeah, so we get to your level.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think when it comes to that, and then
Right.
obviously if there's examples in the situation, like if you're the only person there and they're doing that way, maybe they're just a little patronizing. Don't know that they're being
Mhm.
patronizing.
Right,
Maybe
right.
they think this is the best way to teach people. But if there are other people there and specifically men, and they're not talking to them in that same way when they're asking questions, that's when it's clearly just mansplaining. They're just
Right,
being,
right.
you know,
So, I watched an interesting video the other day. I don't know if you guys have watched it. It's about this pro female golfer, and
Mhm.
she was working on her swing, and the guy right next to her was like, let me if you like straighten your back like this,
Oh, wait,
then
I've
it'll be
seen that.
Yeah, have you
I've
seen that?
video?
no, I
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah. So I looked at
But
that.
it sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, she took it very well. She didn't get mad at the
Very
guy or
professional.
anything.
Like
She
her,
just
the
kind of-
caption was more
Right,
explaining
right.
the situation, but the
Right.
video, she was very nice.
She was very nice, and she was like, you know, probably rolling her eyes in the back of her head.
Right.
But
I don't blame her. I'd be doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
but this guy didn't know that she was a professional golfer, and I have a hard time thinking, was that clearly mansplaining, or was it? It's such a gray area. What's
Well-
your opinion on that? Because he wasn't patronizing to her.
In that way, because golf is a very male-dominated sport,
Right.
at least from what I can see.
So do you think he just assumed, oh, she's a woman, she doesn't know
Maybe,
better?
Yes. That's
Okay.
what I assume.
I guess
I'm not
it's
saying
the
that's the fact.
intention.
Well, then,
But
we're
she-
jumping to like
he-
an assumption base here because he assumed that she didn't know she was talking.
But
Dude,
he-
Right.
But
even
the
though
thing is-
she's a professional.
She was swinging it, and I don't know nothing about golf, right?
No,
So like
not
I can't
really
say if it was right or wrong.
either.
I'm right there with you.
But it looked like she was doing it fairly well, and he kept on coming back to her kind of throughout, like a couple times.
Yeah, you're right.
And then he was
you're
like,
right.
at the end, he was like, "Oh, that was much better," kind of taking credit for the
Right.
feedback that he gave her.
Okay,
She was
you're
just
right, you're right.
swinging it the
If
way
he-
she was.
If the first thing was like he was just making a comment just to help her as a nice Samaritan, and he stopped there, it would have been fine. But he kept on coming back, so maybe it was
Yeah.
patronizing.
Well, and the thing is, she hit the ball, and like it was doing what it was supposed to do. If it was me there hitting the ball, it would probably look really weird. And if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, how
Yeah.
about you do this and that?" I
Yeah.
wouldn't take it in a bad way because I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
But she
Right.
clearly knew what she was
Right,
doing.
right,
So
right.
She was
Yeah.
doing warm up swings. I mean,
Yeah,
most
right.
novices aren't going to be coming in and
Yeah.
doing warm up
Yeah.
swings.
I guess he should have stopped once she explained herself. She's
Yeah.
like, "I'm just trying to do
Yes.
this," but he didn't stop.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
That
she
the
she
problem.
was
She-
clarifying what she was
Yes.
doing.
Yeah,
at that
Okay,
point, it
yeah,
becomes
you're
a
right.
little
You're
bit
right.
of
You're
a-
right. So it was. Well, because initially I thought, oh, he's just trying to be nice, but then now that I think of it, he did continuously come back and say,
yeah.
no. Yeah.
And like again, this is an assumption, but it kind of becomes like a power move that like I know more than you.
Right.
That I can
right.
explain to you how to do something.
Right.
But
So,
again,
Do
I
you
don't
think
know.
it
I don't
happens
know his
a little
intentions.
bit has to do with the fact that she had a camera up too.
Maybe
Because a lot of people see
Maybe.
cameras nowadays and they
influencer.
influencer. They want to be part of it. They want to
Right,
be
right.
their 5 minutes of fame, you know.
I don't know if that guy was looking for fame. It didn't really seem like he.
But if you like, think of it this way, like if he recognized her as like, maybe she's a good golfer,
Uh-huh.
right? I know who she is. And then he comes over and he interjects himself because he's like, she's gonna get views.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm gonna
he
get my 5 minutes of fame.
he wasn't on camera at all.
Yeah, he
though.
wasn't.
he
He
wasn't.
wasn't.
He
you
was.
just
He
hear
was
his
out of
voice.
frame.
Oh,
yeah,
He's
yeah,
out of
yeah, yeah.
frame.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
think it was a fame thing,
Yeah.
but yeah. So
Maybe
I
he's
guess
just
that's a
really
good
bad at
example of
flirting.
man. Yeah, really bad at flirting. Is that how you flirt, Brian? Is that
you nag her
is
to
that-
death.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I
Break
heard-
down her confidence.
Yes,
and
and
then
then build
then-
it back up.
and then build exactly.
And now you're
Exactly.
attached.
That's
Hashtag
crazy.
toxic.
That's crazy. But you've
Wow.
seen a lot of those type of videos too with the gym.
Yes. Yeah. At
And
the gym.
I've seen both like directions.
Right.
I've seen both where like someone gets offended that someone came up to them to explain something to them or
Right.
to help their form.
Right.
And I've seen other times where they were like, "Oh, really? Like this is a better way to do it," and then they do it and they're
Right.
really happy about it.
Yeah.
So I've seen both.
You're a gym guy.
Yeah.
Do you ever want to just go up to someone and say, "Hey, do this"?
I do it a lot with younger
Yeah.
guys. I
Younger
specifically don't
guys.
talk to women about it though, because
Right.
there is that fear of the harassment kind
Uh-huh.
of
Mhm.
mentality, even though it's me just being genuine.
Yeah.
I love helping people and I
Mhm.
love talking. And so when I see younger guys lifting all the time, I'll always go up to them and be like, hey, maybe you should lower your weight, practice your form a little more.
Yeah.
There's no problem with starting at a low weight. But I would never go up and talk to a woman like that at the gym. So
Yeah.
I couldn't say I mean, and how would it feel if a guy did come up to you while you were at the gym, right? Like,
Right.
if someone, and it depends on how they do it, obviously. But
Yeah.
I try to be polite, and I always say, "Can I offer some advice?" I wait.
Right.
I give them the option, and if they say no, then I'm like, "Okay, have a good workout," and I go about my day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
It depends on the way it's given. I think what you just said at the end there is like key. If you ask me, hey, would you want some advice?
Right.
That is big because
Right.
then I could go. Then I'm
Then,
like, okay,
yeah,
then
it
now
puts the
I'm
ball in
ready
your
for
court.
critique.
Right. It gives
Now
you the
I'm
ball.
now I'm ready for feedback because I said yes. So
Yes.
I'm open. But if you just give me the feedback, then you can take it more offensively.
Yeah.
So I think asking that question beforehand, because you're saying like it's coming from a good place,
Yeah.
and like if you are working out or if you're new or even if you've been there for a while, there's a lot of times you can't see your own faults.
Right.
So
And
Yeah.
and for me, because I do like to explain things a lot, I get very passionate about that stuff. Once it was brought to my attention that it could be considered mansplaining, even though that wasn't my intention. So I'm not going to sit there and say I was mansplaining all the time, even though I may have said that earlier.
Mhm.
But in the regards to like how I've changed is that now I ask, hey, like, is this okay if I explain this to you? And like that goes to just whether it's male or female.
yeah.
So, again, it's context, right?
Yeah.
Context, your environment and all that matters really
Mhm.
much in when you're talking to one
Right.
another.
Yeah.
So if you can clear up that ground,
Yeah, I think that's
it can help those who struggle with mansplaining
Mhm.
to not mansplain.
Right.
So,
It kind of seems like you have been accused of mansplaining before.
Shame. I'm just kidding.
shame, ding, ding. Walk through the town square. I know. I'm sorry. I'm a mansplainer. What do you want from me? But
So
no, I don't think I've ever been. Hey,
fully-
stop mansplaining to
right.
me.
Yeah.
It was kind of like people have said it behind your back, and then it was brought to your
Oh.
attention.
Have they? I don't. The only people that's ever told me that I've
That's
mansplained
funny.
is you and another friend, and that was because we were talking about.
Oh,
What
you know what?
mansplaining
You're
was.
right. You're right. It wasn't behind your back, but I think her and I had a conversation about it because you are a very passionate person and you like explaining
Yeah,
things.
I do.
So we had a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And then we had a conversation saying it can come off as mansplaining to
mansplaining,
people who
yes.
don't know you.
Yeah.
And then we had that conversation with you.
Exactly, and
Yes.
that from that moment on is when I've been
Changing.
Right.
starting the conversation or the explanation with the, hey, is it okay if I
Right.
Mhm.
go
But
about
then-
it in this route?
I don't think you should change who you are because one of my favorite things about you is that you
No,
are
and
so passionate
still-
and wanting to help.
I still like very much like explain things to people, and I love sharing new things that I've learned. And even if it's like some of the most common sense things that I've recently learned,
Yeah.
I just learned it. So I don't know if it's a common thing. Like I just barely
Sure.
learned that it was a thing, and I'm like, oh, I want to share that with other people, and so I go about sharing it in a very like patronizing way.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's patronizing. I don't think you're ever
But
patronizing.
it can. But if it
But
does
it-
come out patronizing,
it
then it's
could-
seen
yeah,
as mansplaining, and then you're down that rabbit hole again.
Yeah. How do we feel about the term mansplaining? Let's talk about that real quick and then we'll go to ad break. So how do we feel about the term mansplaining?
I don't like it,
You don't like
I
it
but I'm
think-
biased.
Yeah.
because you're a man.
I think anyone can mansplain, but men have just, I guess, gotten that label because they have been doing it more.
I think
I'm-
I agree. The term can be potentially harmful. However,
It does exist.
Belittling through explaining.
yeah, but I do also feel like it did bring attention to certain like the patriarchy. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It did.
Well,
yeah.
And,
Attention.
I might not be a fan of it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Right, it definitely
obviously
exists.
happens, and there are
Mhm.
plenty
Right.
of men out there that do intentionally talk down to women because they
Right.
don't think that they know right. They don't know what's best in that situation.
Right.
And to bring it to the foreground so that people can recognize it is important.
Right.
But
But
I think
the
it's
term
important
is
to also-
overused.
I
That's what
agree,
it is.
the
It is
term-
Yeah.
overused.
You can't
Absolutely.
just say that anything is mansplaining if someone
Yeah.
is explaining something to you.
yeah.
Exactly.
Because, yeah.
Because it might come from a really good place.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and sometimes the reason why I think is mansplaining is coming from like an insecure point of view. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can bring myself up as an example. If you're explaining something to me and I know it's coming from a good place, but the thing is, I want you to know that I know it.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, the ego. Yeah,
The
me too, same
ego,
here.
like-
yeah.
Like the internal conversation in my head, if you are mansplaining something to me, and I know you're just explaining it to me because you're passionate about it and because you want to teach me, then I'm also like, I know that too. Like I just want you to know that I also know that.
Yeah.
Because it makes me feel like you thought that I didn't know that.
Yeah. But I need you to know how smart I am.
I was going to mention, like, it's probably best that we do let people know that I'm familiar with this and I appreciate your explanation. But like, can we move on to something that I'm not familiar with?
So I think that's a great conversation after ad break on how to communicate better. So ad break, see you later. Are you a big burly man in a hurry? A bar of soap should do the trick. Take a man shower, simple, with a sudsy brick. So we were kind of talking about communication, right? We were kind of discussing how, like, letting someone know, hey, I already know this. Okay, so let's kind of go back to that real quick and then kind of discuss, is there a gender difference between men and women? So, okay, how do you tactfully tell someone, yo, I know this?
I've had, like, I work in the tech world. People will explain things to me all of the time, assuming that I don't know it, which is fine because I usually don't.
Right.
So that's also a factor, I think, because if someone explains something to you and you actually didn't know it, you will never label, like, I don't think you would label it as mansplaining.
Right.
Usually you label it as mansplaining because you know it.
Right.
So, like, what's the bar for what you should and shouldn't know? And so when people explain things to me at work, sometimes they'll start explaining it and then they'll go, wait, do you know this? And then most of the times I'll go, no, I'm not super familiar with this subject. Or I'll be like, oh yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. But like asking those questions can let you like skip through the conversation.
Right.
Like if they start explaining, do you know something about this? Yeah, I actually know this. Oh, cool. Next stage of the conversation.
Right.
So maybe it's on the person that's explaining to interject with.
Right.
Is it something you're familiar with? Like you said, if it was like the base.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but then we can't really control anyone's how they communicate. So what can
but we can always do better on ourselves, and people can follow by example.
You're right.
This is an important thing. You mentioned you're in the tech world. I do a quality assurance for a company, and I have to explain to people like why I found that there was an issue in regards to this thing, even though it's something that they should know.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I would prefer if they just outright said like, hey, I know, I messed up.
Yeah.
I didn't catch
Right.
that.
Yeah,
I messed
like,
up. I know that is what I should have done. I clearly didn't do it. And then we can continue about our, going about it. Just being clean, cut, to the point. Now, I understand that's probably not the best for everybody because some people might have a hard time with that.
Right.
But I mean, it's best just to be upfront.
Yeah.
At the beginning. Trying to sugarcoat things is just a bad ground to get more confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I definitely think.
But do be tactful about
yes,
it.
Yes, be tactful.
Don't be rude. Don't be inappropriate. And don't be like patronizing or condescending.
Yes. I think I kind of struggle with that sometimes because I'm a bit of a control freak. And so it's I need to learn how to develop a level of trust with people because sometimes I'm like, you can say that you know it, but I don't think you know it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you know exactly how this works.
Right.
Yeah. But maybe it's
but
like,
at that point, it's part of like
trust.
Trust.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's trust. It's like you gotta, if they say that they did it or they know how to do it and then they don't do it correctly, then now in the future, you've got to treat them differently than how you
so
initially would treat
let
somebody.
people prove themselves to you.
Yeah, and then you go from there.
Well, and if they ask you about a topic or like start talking, there might be areas of the topic that you just don't know yet. So like if you are patient and let them go through some explaining that you already know, then maybe they'll actually end up at an area where you are unfamiliar and you just have to like not be so worried about looking stupid and allowing other people to teach you things because most likely they probably know something that you don't know, but I guess it's when it's down to the very, very basic things that people start explaining when it becomes a problem.
I was just thinking like maybe just also kind of just suck up the pride a little bit too and just say, because sometimes I run in that boat where I'm like, I just don't want, like you said earlier, I just don't want to sit here and listen to you talk about something I already know. But maybe there will be something in there that you didn't know.
Right.
Or maybe something changed and you weren't aware of a change and they bring it up and they mention it and you're, oh, that's great to know.
Right.
So
Or maybe they actually are not mansplaining it to you, but they just learned it for the first time and they're really proud of it.
That's what he was saying. Yeah, he does that a
So,
lot.
They just like really want to
He's like,
tell
let me
you.
show you how this works.
Like, I just want to let you know that I actually understand it, and it's not that you don't know
yes,
it.
exactly.
And you can tell too, be like if someone's passionate about
Right.
it. You know,
Yeah.
if they're like a boring, bland, disinterested explanation, you know, or even just a disinterested but dumbed down explanation, then they're clearly patronizing you. But if they're like into it and excited about it,
Yes.
and you
Then
know,
it's not
they
about you.
show, they show like actual effort into it, then it's probably not to degrade you or belittle you in any way.
Exactly.
Or it could be, and they're just really good at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which if they
more
are,
power to them.
yeah.
I mean, if they can hide their intent, then
Right.
good job.
Yeah. Wow. Magic.
So, with the term mansplaining,
We call that W-Riz.
oh W-Riz. Okay. Hashtag Gen Z. Hashtag social media.
We're like barely Gen Z.
We are barely Gen Z. I'm not the best. I'm not a cool kid.
We're borderline.
You're not a Gen Z.
I'm pick or choose.
I think we're pick or choose. No?
No.
Are you on the border?
Yeah, I'm
No,
on
I
the
thought we
border.
were on the
No,
border.
I'm like a year in, year out on millennial.
Oh.
It depends on who you ask.
Right.
And does it really matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we bring up the term mansplaining, it brings up a very interesting question. Is it just a communication difference between the genders? We did talk about, yes, real mansplaining is patronizing. But does the term get misused a lot because different genders have different ways of communicating with each other? What do you think?
I mean, I feel like communication is all about like where you're raised, how you were raised, and who you were raised around.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you were a young boy and you grew up in a very predominantly boy region, and your communication style with one another is going to be vastly different than a girl who grew up with specifically girls. I mean, I grew up with 3 older brothers, and I communicate very differently from how you would communicate. We are way more crass, maybe a little more inappropriate, and a lot of the topics are generally traditionally masculine topics. So
Right.
and violence,
Yes, violence.
like
Oh my gosh.
a lot of
Violence.
wrestling.
Yeah. Because I grew up with only girls.
Yeah.
Well, you grew up with both. No, you grew up with mostly boys too.
Yeah, I have one
Yeah.
sister and a good amount of brothers.
Yeah.
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 And so I was
Double
so
digits.
shocked.
That's a lot of brothers. Did they ever hang you over the railings
My brothers
or
were,
tease you in that way?
like they were pretty nice.
Oh, they were.
Yeah,
nice?
they were that aggressive.
No,
man.
I met his
if anyone was
family.
aggressive, it was me and my sister.
They're-
Honestly,
Yeah. You know what? His sister is like the boys.
She's middle sister. But again, like it all does boil back down to like who you were like,
Raised with.
where you were raised, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What culture you were raised in.
Yeah.
If you were raised within a religion, within, you know, an Eastern or Western culture, you know, it's all, you know, the way you
Yeah.
communicate. You know, if it's your first or second language, like you two, you know, like you wouldn't be able to pick up on the nuances of a native speaker in that language versus, you know.
By the way, I have a problem with the term clear as mud.
yeah, or like beating the dead horse. I don't like that one either.
Yeah. Like, what?
Well,
Yeah.
wait, do you understand what
I
they
understand
mean?
what they mean. I just hate them.
You just hate them.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's the thing. With-
yeah, were you gonna explain it to us?
Yes.
Were you gonna explain?
Well, if you didn't know, that's why I asked. That's why I asked. Otherwise, I'm walking into a trap.
Okay, moving on.
Digging a
Out of
hole.
all the English
Can I get
words,
a ladder?
English terms that we dislike. Generally, not everyone, but generally, men and women do communicate a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I have recognized that men are just a little bit more logical and analytical, whereas a lot of women are more perceptive on picking up cues.
Yes.
Yeah, like passive cues.
Yes.
So
It's like
Body
verbal,
language.
like body language.
Yeah.
like
body language,
verbal
tone,
inflection,
yeah,
like tone
yeah,
inflection.
yeah.
Like
Like
Yeah.
reading into what is being said behind this thing.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay, hypothetical setting. Like, you have a girls' night. There's like 10 girls there, right? After the girls' night, I'll talk to you. Be like, did you notice how this girl was off and how she answered that question. And like, you will read in and look into things. And a lot of times, like, something was off and we were right. But the only reason we know is because of the way, like, certain little cues that we picked up on throughout the whole night.
Yeah.
And that's how we know something was off.
Yeah.
Not because the person said it.
Right.
I mean, that can still also bleed into men as well. We're just not.
No, men cannot do that.
Men
Well,
don't
we
know
are
how to do it
two-dimensional.
anyway.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Food and sex.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
What were you saying though? About the men also.
Oh, like we have emotions and we also don't.
Right.
Occasionally you can pick up on cues, if they're just, I like to play games with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a friend gets really into Super Smash Bros. When we're all fighting against each other and we're all a little drunk, and sometimes some of them get, quiet.
Yeah.
And when they get quiet, they're upset. Right.
Right.
And so it's like, and maybe they're not like super quiet, but they're not as boisterous as they used to, or usually are, so on and so forth. So it's like we do have those things too, but I don't think it is as
it's like everything's on a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about how we talk to each other and how we explain stories, it's much more detail filled.
Yes.
And what is happening here and 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 here, and that's why this is here and here. And yes. Puzzle. Whereas you normally say things straight to the point. Like, this is what happened.
Yeah, these are the facts.
Like, only the relevant details. But then to us, it is relevant. All the details are relevant.
Like, anything could be relevant if you make it interesting enough for me.
So
I guess I could see that. Like, why bring in things that wouldn't be relevant to the overall picture of it?
But it is relevant.
Because you're just extending the explanation at that point.
Right. So do I think
that there is a gender difference in communication styles?
Yes.
I feel like there's a social gender difference, like something that we've applied to, because boys can only hang out with boys when they're kids because girls got cooties, boys got cooties.
Maybe. It's like that nature versus nurture. I think generally.
Because there's plenty of very feminine men out there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That would be able to pick up on those nuances and cues. So I don't think it's specifically like,
because I'm not
like
as perceptive as you are,
as much as it's like a gender role thing.
But there are it's not nature versus nurture. I think generally, not everyone, but generally, when you're a cis male and cis, we're not getting into all the other stuff. If you're a cis male and a cis woman, generally, I think you have certain qualities. And that's why stereotypes exist, right?
You said you didn't want to get into it, but I think that's a very big role to play into communication.
Yeah.
And like understanding mansplaining and where it comes from and all that is like, especially in the culture that we live in now, it's so diverse and so different here, especially in the US, when we have not only different cultures, but different sexes and genders and so on, not sexes, but genders and so on and so forth. Like the way that we all communicate with one another is drastically changing, because it's not the stereotypical stay-at-home nuclear family, stay-at-home wife, father's working, 3 kids, white picket fence. It's more you're getting multicultural and communication happening, and so it's important to realize that I do think it's nurture. I think
think it's nurture?
I do think it's nurture. The way that people.
Well, because then that wouldn't explain. Then if it was nurture, then I should be more like my siblings, but I'm not. And so it creates a lot of communication differences with my siblings.
Well, but we all have unique and different experiences in our life that create us into who we are.
Right.
Right. Because if it was all nurture, then why is my sibling, who is not the most attentive and, analytical and logical, why does he talk the way that he does and I talk the way that I do? Right. Because I know plenty of men. There's plenty of people, as the quality assurance person, there are plenty of men out there that are just don't have that logic.
Right.
And
so you would disagree.
I would disagree.
You would disagree.
I absolutely think it's nurture.
Okay.
I don't think it's, I think maybe aggression tends to be more in men in our form of communication because of testosterone. Like I can get behind that if there's a study behind it, but I I think that the way that we talk to one another and how we treat one another is all nurture.
I don't like disagree, but I do think that there's some more basic stuff that does happen.
Yeah. Because
Um,
I think generally when I do deal with women from all different cultures, there is a general kind of way you interact with each other.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a learned though because of
Is it-
thousands of years of nurture and expectation?
Well, is it
Is
thousands
it
of
learned?
learn or is it 1,000 years of biology?
I think it's learned.
I
Because
think
look-
it's
look-
both.
Look how fast our culture's changed in the last 30 years here in the US. I mean,
Yeah.
like just with the acceptance of the gay community, the LGBTQ community, and there's probably more, but I'm not aware. But so on and so forth, is that like things change, and especially with the information era now.
Yeah,
And the
well-
way because like we have internet babies now, people that are exclusively raised in like through the tech world, and their exposure to different cultures, different ways of living has drastically changed, how they behave and what they see as acceptable versus what we see as acceptable.
So I know several, like lots of like LGBTQ couples that are raising children, and they feel strongly about, like, if it's a gay couple, they feel strongly that there should be a strong woman presence in the child's life as well. So would that be societal, or would we say?
Well, no, but in terms of communication, I mean that's we're boiling down to like like instinctual raising and stuff. We're talking about talking.
But
We're
then-
talking about like mansplaining, right? And that's
Right,
very-
communication. But
and
I feel like everything's interconnected though, because it's like it's part of who how you communicate is part of who you are.
right.
Like
and
it's
you
everything
are
accumulated.
from what you exactly. It's accumulated experiences on how you communicate and talk to people. It's a nurture thing. It's not that I was born to be this who I am now, because there are plenty of drastic events that have happened in my life that could have
Right.
changed how I behave.
But people have specific tendencies, I think. When
But you're saying you're
You have
kind of
your
like
personalities.
you like agree but disagree a bit. Like how so in the way that it's versus nurture or nature.
My overall views in general are that I think things are more biological.
I think we're torn on the idea that there's a communication difference between the two genders.
No,
So
I
then-
agree that there is a communication difference.
Right.
I just don't agree that it is you're born to communicate that way.
No, I think it's
it's
both
learned.
nature and nurture
Like-
for me personally.
Mhm.
Communication can always be developed, and like you can always evolve.
Oh yeah,
and change
for
like,
sure.
right.
I just feel like people have certain, there is a
certain
clear
defaults.
people have certain tendencies, and it's very prevalent within the sexes.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like the way men would talk around each other versus the way they would talk around a woman is
Right.
very different
So
in a lot of situations for a lot of men.
So with these differences that so we're on the same page. There are differences, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that there's definitely
Okay.
differences.
Okay, what are the differences? Let's just talk about, what are the kind of differences that you do experience, and why do we think that has led to this quote unquote term of mansplaining type of a thing?
Well, I mean, mansplaining is not necessarily the differences in communication. I think it's just misogyny.
Well, okay, yes. True mansplaining, yes, but mansplaining is overused nowadays. So why
Yeah.
do we think it's overused? I guess that's the core of my question. Why is it overused?
Maybe
And-
it's because we're like told that
Right.
I'm not saying the patriarchy is not a thing. We're constantly told that men are a certain way. And then so we just default to, because this man was explaining something to me, he's mansplaining it.
Right.
Where he was actually not. And you're not looking into the situation as like a situation, but you're assuming that he was mansplaining because he was explaining and he was a man.
Right. Yeah, I think part of it is a trend for sure.
Yeah.
But then I think a part of it is not understanding where each party is coming from.
We're all toilet
Yeah.
scholars.
Yes.
That's my favorite term to use because
Wow.
everyone will sit on the toilet for 5-10 minutes, or not everyone, but some people
Yeah.
do, and then they'll see a few cases, a few examples of what potentially could be, and because it was a hot button
Uh-huh.
topic to talk about, they just kind of like, they don't do any further research
Right.
into what really
Yeah.
is mansplaining. What are
Yeah.
the real signs to recognize in
Yes.
mansplaining?
Yeah,
It's-
everyone jumps to conclusions
Yeah.
nowadays
Yeah.
in everything.
And there's outrage culture.
Yeah. Well, it's like whenever I feel like nowadays you hear a lot of people say just throw out the word I have depression all of the time, whereas that's actually a diagnosis.
Mhm.
So everyone is depressed, but I think it takes away from the people
who
that
are
are
actually
They're suffering
Sim-
from
yeah.
severe
yes,
depression.
Yeah.
similar where when people are actually being mansplained to, like
takes away from
it takes
that.
away from those situations because it's just everyone uses
Overuse,
it all of the time.
Yeah,
in
you
anything.
devalue the
Yeah.
word by
Yes.
overusing it
Yeah.
in every potentially applicable
Yeah.
situation
Like-
without truly looking at what's
What are the facts?
Yeah. What are the facts?
The not guilty until proved. No, hold on.
You're the judge, jury, and the executioner.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. We talked a little bit about how to communicate better, but let's have one more ad break, and then
Mhm.
we will let's discuss how to communicate better, and then
Mhm.
feel like we're in a good place. Good place. Cool.
We're ad. To your ad.
Ooh, that's a woman. She must not know how to do anything. I should help her and explain everything in great detail. Mansplaining. You'll never know how it will be received. Take a chance and try it out.
Welcome back. Let us explain to you how to mansplain better. So, during
Let's talk to the expert, Brian.
So when you grab a glass, normally you fill it with a liquid and you press that glass
Wow.
to your lips.
Oh my god!
You get
I
it?
was
You-
just like
you put it.
Yeah.
putting
Oh,
it
see,
on my face.
that's why you're always so thirsty.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Why you
why.
always have a headache.
Wow,
Do not
thank
capture
you.
enough water.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Water solves everything.
So when we were speaking earlier, we spoke like an array of topics, but
Yeah,
I
we
think
did.
the core of it is the problem with mansplaining the word these days. It's the overuse and jumping to conclusions, right? So how can we prevent overusing this word, and how can we communicate better in general? Like, what do you?
Just
Where someone start?
recognize a situation as maybe they're being
Mhm.
patronizing and not mansplaining.
Yeah.
And then
Wait. You just said recognize them as being patronizing.
Right, because there's a difference between mansplaining. Mansplaining is intentionally when a man patronizes a woman and only a woman
But you just said recognize something as patronizing.
versus mansplaining. Because when you patronize, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking
Down
down
to someone.
somebody, right? So if that person
But then if someone is being patronizing to you, isn't that technically mansplaining?
Yeah, like if someone is mansplaining, they're also
Yeah.
being patronizing.
I mean, if I was a woman
Right,
being
but if-
patronized, it'd be
but
womansplaining.
patronizing or mansplaining is specifically
Mhm.
Geared
targeting
towards
women in regards
Right.
to being
Yeah.
patronizing and dumbing it down and making it simple because women are simple, right? Hey, you did the peace sign with agreement. But the point stands is like, if they're just a jerk and they patronize everybody, that doesn't make them a better person than if they were mansplaining. But maybe we shouldn't slap mansplaining onto it. And then to also recognize.
But here's the thing: if you don't know, sorry, there
Did you
was
get
a
it?
fruit fly. I don't think I did.
Oh, no Spider-Man.
But here's the
references.
thing: if you're first interacting with someone for
Yeah.
the first time, you don't know how they interact with other people.
Yeah.
Right.
And
You don't
so
have
if
a
this
basis.
person is being patronizing to you, I feel like that's a okay assumption to be like, I think this guy was clearly mansplaining to me. Because the guy with the onions and the knife, he might do that to everyone. But he did it specifically to me in that situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's a clear example of being mansplained too.
Part of mansplaining is assuming that the other party doesn't know. So
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah.
He assumed that I didn't
So,
know
like,
how to hold
know
a
a
knife
very
and cut
basic
it.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're getting to know somebody and they start mansplaining to you on something very generic, but if it's like a workplace environment where you might be new to the situation, they don't know your background very well, you don't know their background, it's probably more appropriate to not assume that they are and
Right.
let their future actions dictate whether they're that kind of person or not.
Right. I did maybe not assume they're patronizing and maybe just kind of
Ask a
analyze the
question?
situation and maybe
Yeah.
figure out if this person is just trying to explain something to you,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and not to like put the victim at fault,
Mhm.
but sometimes, because I do this, sometimes when someone is explaining something to you and you know it, like evaluate the situation like we've talked about already, that it's not about you, but it could be just about them wanting to explain it.
Right.
Which, sheesh.
I don't know why that one. Oh, it's coming off. It's not secure.
Pardon. Technical difficulties, sort of.
Mansplain
it's
that.
Wow.
I guess we did need a man for
Yeah.
these technical issues.
Wow.
What were we saying?
I don't remember my thought.
You were saying something about something.
Well, what a great way to get me back
Wow.
on track.
Uh,
Well, I was just saying that, which we have talked about throughout the episode, but to look at it from the other person's point
Right.
of view, because if you isolate yourself in your head only, then maybe you are a person who easily gets offended by things, or maybe you're in a headspace where just enough things happen that day for you to pick the next bad thing that happens, and you're like, "What? He just mansplained it to me. My day's over." It's like, don't jump to conclusions and look at things only from your eyes.
I feel like that's the core of what we've been talking about is don't jump to
Yeah.
conclusions.
I feel like the thing too is that sometimes people get into their own head that everything is about them,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of what you were talking
what
about.
do
like,
mean? Everything is about me.
Clearly.
Wow.
It's about me.
Yeah. This is actually
Wow.
false. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. I am Korean, and I think we're all agreed Asian is the best race in the world. Do we not agree on that?
We're like
is
race
that-
ranking.
Yeah, are we? Is that not
Who-
this kind of show?
listen, as an Englishman, as a person who has English heritage, who conquered most of the world? I'm just
whoa! It is true.
How
No,
much did you
but
keep
you know what?
in your possession?
But you know what?
We took a lot. We took it back.
Okay, hold on,
to,
hold on, though.
to England.
We
Hold
did
on.
absolutely nothing. In
Hold
Norway.
on, though.
We got
Hold
smaller,
on, though.
I think.
Queen, but it was all Queen Victoria, though.
got
was
oil,
during-
though.
Yeah, we got
we do
oil.
have oil.
Um,
I'm just saying, Queen Victoria, she was at the core of it, so
Yeah.
you know.
the English did take a lot, but back to
Yes, back to the topic at hand. Not everything is about me, is what you said.
yeah, not everything is like people tend to think too much of like how other people are seeing them in the moment and how they're interacting with them in the moment, but everyone else is kind of like we don't think about what you are wearing right then and
Yeah.
there, right, all day long. I
Mhm.
have so much more going on in my head.
Yeah.
And you have so much more going on in your head. So think of it like that one interaction that you had with that person. Try to think of, yourself in their shoes, or like think of something about them. Oh, where am I going with this? I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
Well, I feel like I understand what you're saying though.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and people aren't gonna think about you for that long anyways.
Yes.
Or like
Right.
like if you do something stupid, to put in another example, and you feel so embarrassed about it, you're the only one who's gonna think about it. The other person's not gonna care.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if you,
'Cause
like-
they got their own thing
Yeah,
going on that
uh-huh.
they're worried about.
Like, oh boo-hoo, I went into work and had a stain on my shirt. No one cares. No one's ever gonna think about that. You're the only person who thought about that. So you have a bad day because you thought about it.
Right.
Right.
That exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What was
Thank
I gonna
you
say?
for helping me collect my own
No
thoughts.
worries. Had to mansplain that one for you.
See, we're taking the real word and just
We're
twisting
reversing
it.
the roles.
We're putting a positive connotation.
Can you stop mansplaining me? That's going to be our new conversation in 30 years.
So jumping
Remember
to
mansplaining?
conclusions.
Well, now it's women's
Yeah.
splaining.
Yeah.
I forget what I was gonna say. I think I was gonna say, that's what I was gonna say. So I was gonna say, I think, stop laughing. Stop laughing. Let me talk.
Thoughts together,
Let me-
train them.
Let me talk.
Mansplaining, when you put thoughts together and you vocalize them.
Sir?
This was
conversation.
20
Sir?
seconds of nothing.
Sir.
It was great. It was a great 20 seconds of nothing.
Okay, hold on.
Say it.
Hold on. Okay.
Just
okay.
say it.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think for me, what goes along with stop laughing, Sada. Stop it.
Stop introducing your
Stop
thoughts.
it.
Yeah,
say it.
you're interrupting yourself. See, now we're doing what we mentioned earlier. You're thinking
Okay,
too much of
hold
what we're
on.
doing.
let me just say it.
Yes.
So, I think what goes a long way for me when I interact with people is just appreciating the person for who they are because everyone is different.
Mhm.
So, I try, especially when I interact with friends, what I do is I try not to like I don't think that they should be like me because they're a different person
Mhm.
and they interact totally differently. So I appreciate them for who they are and I let them shine in their way no matter how different it is from me because that's who they are. Now, if they're doing like some Hitler shit, I might say a comment here or there.
That's
but-
where you draw the line.
I draw the line at genocide and atrocities.
Anything after there is up for discussion, and
We're all
I
good.
might be okay with
Yeah,
it.
okay. What a,
If you're convincing enough, I'll go with that.
what a very specific line.
Yeah.
So, just appreciate people for who they are and how they communicate because everyone communicates differently.
Right, but you don't have to appreciate every form of communication because there's
No,
some that are
yeah,
clearly
you're
just
right, you're right.
negative and
Right.
not fun to be around.
Maybe I guess remember the intent behind
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
And if the intent is good, appreciate the person for how they communicate
right,
because that is who they are.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, boils down to like knowing the person. If you don't know the person, don't jump to a conclusion that they are
Right.
a misogynist or sexist or,
Yeah.
all these terms we have for it.
Yeah.
They could have just been an overexcited Brian ready to share something with you,
Yeah.
not someone that thinks that you're dumb or stupid. And maybe Brian's dumb and stupid and is learning a lot lately.
Or-
Didn't know that
yeah.
everyone else didn't know that or
Or-
already knew that.
Mhm.
So.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian just admitted that he is stupid. Let's put that
Wow.
on record.
And maybe Brian said something stupid once, and you can't base his whole person on this one thing that he said
Right,
or
yeah.
one thing that he did.
yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's the whole, I feel like that's the whole thing that we've been talking about the whole entire time. Don't jump to conclusions is what
Yeah.
it was.
I mean, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. I think we came to a pretty good conclusion.
Yes.
So ad break, and then we will sum up what we talked about and close the session. So,
Have trouble attracting a mate? Try Ask a Chad. We promise the results will be questionable. Or try negging.
okay.
Draw me like one of you French girls.
Yes.
Sorry.
So, French girls and sexy websites is what we talked about during our ad break. Anyways, mansplaining, is it cool?
Is it cool?
Is it cool?
So cool. I
It's-
love it.
Ryan, will you mansplain us to what we talked about?
Yeah, sum it up for us.
Just kidding. Let me stop you there. Okay.
I'm trying to break this gender stereotype here about mansplaining, and you keep setting me up to be the resident mansplainer.
Let me
This
stop
is
you
not
there.
cool.
Hold on. Let me stop you there.
Well, I
Okay?
mean, I can summarize. We talked about mansplaining. We talked about how people's need to pick up on context clues, maybe not jump to conclusions right off the bat, and
Yes.
improve their forms of communication on whether they feel that they're being patronized versus mansplained, or
And
if they know something and they need to get it to them so that they don't get mansplained to, maybe
Yes.
intentionally or accidentally. And that's a good way to stop to
Yeah.
mansplaining is
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
hey, I'm aware of this. This is pretty common knowledge in our field. You don't need to explain it to me.
that's
Yeah.
kind of rude to say it
But
like
if
that,
you're being
though.
belittled, though, and
Yeah,
it's
if you're
clearly-
being belittled,
if you're
you're right. That's
clearly
fair.
being patronized to or
Yeah.
mansplained to, I don't think it's
Yeah.
wrong for you to stand up for yourself
Yes.
and say, I know this is a common thing.
Yeah.
Can we move on to
Right.
something different?
Something with
And maybe not have so much
essence.
sass behind it.
Yeah.
know,
Excuse
I
me.
can put
Going
sass
it.
behind a lot of my words, and
Ooh, I'm hungry. Anyways, don't
mansplaining builds up an appetite. huh?
Mansplaining. Is
Yeah,
it
because
cool?
you get so tired of them talking.
Mansplaining. Is it cool? It is not cool.
Mansplaining's not
Don't
cool.
patronize people and don't jump to conclusions is essentially what I felt like we talked about today. What about you, Sana?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Just
Just-
be aware. Don't.
Don't be a dick. I feel like we
Well,
say that
you
all
said
the
that
time.
a lot, but don't look at it from
That's a
only
good
your point of
rule.
view.
That's a good rule.
Yeah,
of thumb.
Generally, don't be a dick.
Yeah, but like don't look at things only from your point of view, and the world
Yeah.
does not revolve around you. So don't look so deep into things.
Yeah, because then you just worry about it too much. Like you said, it makes your day worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like you're the only one who is making your day worse.
Yep.
No, my day's always perfect. Okay, don't be a dick. Mansplaining is not cool. Session closed. Thank you, Brian, for
Of course.
coming.
Thank you for having me. I
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
coming.
it.
To thumbs up.
Bye.
Bye.